Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to another episode of Think and Grow Rich Mastermind Live. Hi, my name is Ann McNeil, and I am, yes, I am. I am the master builder, helping to build stronger and better lives and businesses. And I say this every single Saturday. I am so excited to be here to talk about and share another principle from the book, the infamous, awesome book, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. When you think about your desire and you think about what you must invest, your time, your talent, and your treasure, I want to encourage and challenge you to think about who will hold you accountable for that. I want you to think about what power you must harness to bring about your desire. And this can be in your business or your life. Because today we're discussing the mastermind principle from the book, Think and Grow Rich. And this mastermind principle, Napoleon Hill tells us, it is the driving force. It is the ninth step to riches. But as I was preparing for a podcast today, I thought it was so interesting about how he shares this principle of power. In order to translate your power into action, you need knowledge. You need access to that knowledge from a number of different sources, but the infinite wisdom, knowledge, and understanding that comes from the infinite itself is the head of the list of this knowledge. And when you look at organizing this knowledge, think about who you want in your mastermind group to help hold you accountable for organizing this knowledge. Because you see, you can gain this power through your mastermind. And today we have a very special guest that's returning, Miss Darlene Corbett, who we'll talk about in just a moment, who has been a part of our mastermind for many, 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 many years. And so we're going to welcome her back. But as a part of the International Mastermind Association, I am very blessed and honored to be in a mastermind group with none other than Dr. Peter James. He's not here today, but also the one and only Galen Bingham. Good morning, Galen. How are you this morning?
Good morning. Good morning. I am doing well. And again, a nod to Dr. Peter James, who's not here. He's celebrating the mastermind with his wife. So today is their 21st anniversary. So his priorities are in the right place. This principle is really, really important. And I love the way the author talks about the value of a mastermind. He says that it is well known that an electric battery can do great things. It has a certain amount of power by itself, but when you can package it with other batteries, there's even more power. So, and similarly, that's the way we operate. There's a certain amount of success that each of us can have by ourselves. If we go it alone, we can do great things, but oh my gosh, you can get there much faster. You can get there much better, a lot more efficient, with a lot more success if you have like-minded people around you who are helping you to think about how to do things better, faster, more efficiently. And the author also says when two or more like-minded minds come together, there's a third mind in the midst. 2 + 2 turns into 5, 6, or 7. So that's the power of the mastermind. That's why I wake up at 5:30 every Saturday morning to discuss this principle, because there's just so much value, so much power in coming together with like-minded folks. I can't wait to get into this conversation with Darlene. She always adds so much value to our conversations, and this is going to be an amazing show.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Galen. I want to go back to share as we set up, and for those of you who are golfers, as we tee up this principle. Napoleon Hill shares with us that you know, in nature, that energy is the building block. And I never really saw that like I saw it this week. When you think about that, out of nature, we get, nature, I'm going to call her he, she constructs every material in our universe in the form of energy. But when you think about the energy that's created through our brains, how much more powerful, just think about this. How much more powerful can you get when you bring like-minded brains together, focusing on a specific cause, mission, vision? He gives us the example of 2 or 3 batteries are more powerful than one. Now, 2 or 3 brains are more powerful than one. So as you think about this mastermind principle, think about the brains that you are associating with, whether it's at work, your religious association, your civic association, any kind of personal relationships that you have. They are actually forming power. And if it's a negative, it's dispowering you toward your goals. And sometimes we really don't realize, Galen, why we can't move forward. And oftentimes we really should look around ourselves and see who we are surrounded by. And I love the example that he gives when he talks about Henry Ford's power only came after he aligned himself with a number of individuals. And when you think about these individuals, they were individuals that focused on their business, but their business aligned itself with his business. Firestone, Burbanks, Burroughs, these individuals that helped his business thrive. And so when you think about your business, as you listen to this podcast today, who are you surrounding yourself with to help your business and your life or your business thrive? And so with that thought in mind, thinking about individuals that helped us thrive, help me welcome to the podcast this morning our special guest, Miss Darlene Corbett. Good morning, Darlene. You can come on camera. And Darlene views herself as a lifelong learner. She works in progress, and thinking about her history, I think of Zen, Darlene, when I think of you. First of all, let's welcome you to the podcast. Good morning. How are you this morning?
Good morning, Ian. Good morning, Galen. So nice to see both of you again. I am well. Always good energy just sitting with both of you. How about that?
Well, just to tell everybody a little bit more about you, you've written many blogs and articles on personal development. And in 2018, Sound Vision was published. Your book, To Stop Depriving the World of You. Can you share with our listeners just a little bit more about yourself in your own words?
Sure. So Stop Depriving the World of You really came out of my reading Think and Grow Rich. I fell in love with Napoleon Hill's book. You would think I would have known about this back long ago. I didn't. It wasn't until my 50s where a friend and colleague, Marilee Driscoll, introduced the book. I said, Think and Grow Rich. I fell in love with that book. So I started to do a newsletter. And it came in front of Sound Wisdom's administrative assistant. She said, have you ever thought about writing a book? I said, no, maybe someday. Well, someday, I'm in my 50s. It's like, someday better come soon. So I met the publisher, and we decided that it would be a great thing to go forward with. And my book, Stop Depriving the World of You, birthed out of this whole experience. And to me, it's really about using masterminds in different ways, because Mara Lee was helping me out. So I used her energy, and then it prompted me to read that book. That gave me and inspired me. And I feel so powerful in terms of, I mean, I feel so inspired by Napoleon Hill. I use the quote in my book, whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. And I still strongly believe that. And so that led me there. And to make a long story short, my journey has continued. And I say we have many chapters in our lives. And some chapters not so easy, right? And I tell my clients that, not so easy. But you hope you can end that chapter and begin a new chapter. And it's called The Story of You. It's your book of life. And I believe that as long as we have life, we have our wonderful brains that God endowed us with, we can keep going until we have to go to the end.
All right, thank you. Well, I'm excited to delve into your story. And before we go any further, we're going to have Galen come back, and he's going to share with us and tee up our 13 principles, because I think it's so very, very, very important that our listeners and all of us really have a better understanding of how do each of these principles connect with each other, and why it's like baking a cake. You cannot take out one of the major ingredients and expect to have a phenomenal tasting cake. Galen?
Yeah. So again, my favorite part of this philosophy is the fact that everything kind of sits on top of each other, and it starts with desire. It starts with understanding what you want and why you want it and why it's so important to you. But then all of these principles start to sit on top of each other, and if you build on and leverage the things that Napoleon Hill talks about, in the end, you get to this sixth sense where information, insights, resources seem to just be coming to you seemingly from the infinite. But you've got to master these principles, along the way. So take a listen to this video, and we'll talk to you again on the other side.
Number 1 is desire. Napoleon Hill said that everything starts with a burning desire, a compelling reason for doing what it is we do. Step 2 is faith, having belief in our ability to attain that which we desire. Step 3 is what we call autosuggestion. Autosuggestion simply means being very intentional about the things that we are pouring into our thoughts, into our brains, and into our consciousness. Our brains, our minds will receive everything automatically, but we have to work extra hard to make sure that the positive things are what we are feeding ourselves, because those positive thoughts are going to turn into positive actions. Step number 4 is specialized knowledge. No one person knows everything, even about whatever their particular area of expertise might be. And the value of the mastermind principle is using the specialized knowledge of other people. Step number 5 is imagination, the workshop of the mind. Everything starts with our imagination and our thoughts, the burning desire to transform those thoughts into our reality. In order to do that, we have to take a look at step 6, which is organized planning. That is how we crystallize our desire into action, organizing ourselves. Having the thought and not acting on the thought isn't going to get us anywhere. We have the thought, we go through the organized planning to transform that thought into action. Step number 7 is decision. What Napoleon Hill said is the mastery of procrastination. Napoleon Hill said that the antidote to procrastination is simply to make a decision and then move on that decision. Step 8 is persistence. We have to have a sustained effort which is induced by our faith in order to achieve our goals. One of Napoleon Hill's books I love, even the title, 3 Feet from Gold. Those people who became rich during the gold rush in the Wild Wild West days didn't do that because they were necessarily smarter or had better information than anyone else. It's because they stayed just a little bit longer. Sometimes people left when they were just literally 3 feet from gold. So hanging in there, being persistent, is step number 8. Step number 9, the power of the mastermind, the driving force. None of us can accomplish anything on our own. Everybody, I don't care who you are, from the most prominent person to the person who might be considered the lowest on the totem pole, everybody has someone who helped them get to where they are. And the power of the mastermind is being able to use those influences around us, use the thoughts, use the knowledge, use the exploration of other people to help us in achieving our goal. Step number 10, the mystery of sex transmutation. This title can be a little confusing, but essentially what the mystery of sex transmutation means is that we oftentimes in our society think of sex as being purely physical. It is absolutely physical, but what Napoleon Hill teaches us is that sex also has an emotional element, and that sex is the strongest of our desires. That if we can take our sexual energy, transform that into positive, creative influences, it can propel us to new heights. And so we spend quite a bit of time talking about the mystery of step 10, which is sex transmutation. Step number 11 is the subconscious mind, which Napoleon Hill tells us is the connecting leap between our human mind and the infinite intelligence, the source of all thought, the source of all creativity. Conscious mind, we spent some time talking about how we use that through the influence of autosuggestion and what we're feeding into our mind. Step number 12, which is the brain, the broadcasting and receiving station of thought. Final step number 13, the sixth sense, the door to the temple of wisdom. This is the final step through which infinite intelligence may and will communicate voluntarily without any effort from or demands by the individual. The principle is the apex of the philosophy. It can be assimilated, understood, and applied only by first mastering the other 12 principles.
Yeah, so I love that video. I love the entirety of the process. The part that I really like is when they talk about specialized knowledge, because she says that no one knows everything, even about this thing that you're supposed to be the expert in. And by using the mastermind, that's how you can tap into knowledge that's beyond your education, knowledge that's beyond your experience. And that's why I'm so excited to be part of this mastermind. So let's get back into the conversation, and I'll turn this over to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Galen. And again, the video reminds us the stepping stone, if you will, the stepping stones of this principle. So, Darlene, let's come back to you. And if you would take us back to the beginning, if you will, take us back to the beginning of your story. Help us understand a little bit more about you. At what point in your life did you realize that you have something that's very special that the world needs, and that it directed you into your chosen field that you're working in now? At what point did that happen in your journey?
Sure. So, I wanted to become a social worker, psychotherapist, and many people would say it's not. It is a soft science. So it is, and it's like learning a musical instrument. So I suppose, music is based on mathematics. So to some degree, all energy, mathematics, all are involved, but you can take different courses. So it's very intimidating for a very long time. I went into private practice. I was a social worker. I came out of graduate school very early. I was about 23, 20, no, I was 24. And I was too young to really understand people and problems to the degree that some might come visit me as a therapist. So I waited until I was about 30, but I was still very insecure. And I thought, am I really making a difference here? Are people going to really like me? And so I found, I knew I always connected well with people. I was told that from a very young age. You make me feel comfortable. It's just me. I believe God endowed me with very good energy. And I was very blessed, but I still was very insecure. So finally, I had people say, well, I'd rather see you than that person. I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I'm doing something right. By about age 40, I'm like, maybe I guess I am doing okay. So I really realized that this energy that I might transmit or help people pull from theirs is effective. And I'll tell you a real quick story about a young person I saw. I was in my 30s, and this couple asked me to see their son. He had been bullied and he was going off to boarding school. And they thought, we can't send him if he's going to be intimidated like this. So they brought him in, and he was this kind of big, lumbering kid that was clumsy and stepping over his own feet. And he did not want to see me. What adolescent boy wants to see a 30-something-year-old female therapist? Because therapy also, people often see it as pathology oriented. It's not. Yes, people come for problems, but they stay for different reasons. So I didn't know, what am I going to do with this young man? I thought. He didn't talk. He'd nod, he'd grunt, he'd give me a look. So finally, I just started talking to him. And Galen, I talked and I talked. I said, I didn't want to bring up that he was a bit clumsy. So I said, we're going to strengthen you. Go out and garden and do this, do that. And he kept glaring at me. And I kept thinking, who's more tortured being here, him or I? But finally, the 45, 50-minute hour would pass. And about 6 weeks after, I knew there was something different about him, but he never told me. He came every week. He stayed, but he just looked at me. The parents wanted to see me. I'm like, oh no, because they were paying me privately. They weren't using insurance. Not that should make a difference. You do the best you can, but they wanted to go over the top. So they come in and see me. I'm like, oh my God, I was anxious. I'm like, I did a terrible job. I didn't reach this kid. And they said, we want to thank you. I feel like this is like a parody, like a movie. I'm like, and they knew. I go, oh. They go, yeah, can't you tell you're helping him? He's losing weight. He's getting strong. He's going out exercising. Thank you very much. He's all set. I had no idea. I truly didn't. And that part is helped my layered journey to see that sometimes touching another human being with maybe knowledge you have, energy you have, sparks that other person. And that has happened to me so much in my own life with other people sparking me. And so I realized that's my effectiveness as a therapist. I'm not a brilliant researcher. I'm not probably the most, I would say I'm erudite enough, but not enough where I might say the precise exact word. I'm myself. But they know my energy really is the belief in them. And that to me is mastermind, whether you want to call it a therapeutic relationship, which it is, but it's also mastermind, the belief that you can draw out someone and get them to see their own gifts or their own energy. And it really is up to them, because all of these inspirations we all get are like sparks. They disappear. So we have to grab them, right? It's a fleeting opportunity. So it's up to all of us to grab that inspiration that we receive from others. And whether we are talking to someone else that sparks our ideas or we're sparking someone, we have to take that and grasp it and use it. And that's why I often tell people, write it down. You have an idea? Write it down. It's going to pop in and pop out. That to me is the mastermind effectiveness, two people in concert with one another. And as Galen said, that there's a third entity there. And I think that's so true.
I'm hanging.
I hope I entertained you with that story, but go ahead.
Oh my goodness, I am hanging literally on every word. Literally, if you just joined us, and we do want to thank those of you who have joined us on YouTube, Diane, Wyman, Shannon, Smitty, Doretha, all of you, everybody else, because you get in trouble sometime when you start calling names. Yeah. And also Donnelly is still here. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. But if you joined us a little late, we're talking with Darlene Corbett, and she is a longtime masterminder with the International Mastermind Association. And for many of you that may not know, we host a Friday Think and Grow Rich accountability call, and you can go to our website at internationalmasterminders.com, and you can get the details, or you can get the details from Eventbrite. Just put in Think and Grow Rich Friday accountability call. Well, Darlene, for almost years, I want to say years, was very diligent and hosting and just participating with us as a part of the mastermind. But you said something that I wrote down, and I just want to connect with this with everybody. You said sparks, the energy sparks, and this is what the author talks about throughout this principle, because the energy that's created and the power that's created from what you call the sparks, oftentimes we don't connect with it if we don't recognize it when it happens. And the story you just shared about the young man, you didn't see what was happening internally with him. All you could see is external. How often does that happen in many of our mastermind groups, and you're thinking you're not getting through, and all of a sudden something happens whereby individuals come back and they say, yes, you made a major difference in my life and or in my business. So thank you so very much for that, because that helped connect some dots for me. Galen, your thoughts?
Yeah, I couldn't help but see some similarity in your story and some experiences that I've had as a coach, as an executive coach. And specifically, I wanted to ask, for me, there are situations where the client will tell me what they want to work on. And in my intellect, I will recognize, boy, I see why you need a coach for that one, because I got nothing. I have no idea. But when you surrender to the energy, when you surrender to the process, when you allow yourself to go in and leverage this mastermind energy, we end up creating something together that neither of us could have created by ourselves. I'm curious if that's ever happened to you, and then what kind of courage does it take to go into a situation where intellectually you might not have the answer ready, but you have trust in the process, and you have trust that together you and your client will get to where they need to be?
Sure. It's often the case, Galen. I'll have people say, you probably haven't heard this story before, or I don't want to offend you. That just happened recently, and there was no offense. So I don't always know what's going to come out, as you know. You don't always know. And I just learned over the years, my layered experience is to trust. The most important thing is that they trust me and they can share that, and that I trust the process, because our exchange with someone else, as you put, it really is a mastermind experience. As I said, even though therapy is therapy, there's much more to it. It's a mastermind. It's using each other's intellect. It's solving problems. It's being open. It's pointing out to someone as you listen, and you don't always have the answer. Sometimes I'll say, I don't know. I don't always have the answer. I don't know. You don't know. Or they'll say, I need to explore this. Should I? I said, we have to see. We have to see. We have to trust it together. And that's sometimes difficult for some people. Because look, who wants to be in pain, right? I don't know anybody who wants to be in pain. Oh, I'm going to tolerate this pain, whether it be emotional or physical. But right? So sometimes, though, it's like a wound. You have a wound. It's not going to heal like that. And I've had people, like I once saw this lovely young woman. She was in emotional and so much physical pain, but she wanted answers right away. So she said, I don't think this is really helping me. And I said, well, I'd be glad to refer you to someone that might be more effective. She goes, no, you're fine. I just don't think this is any kind of therapy. I've seen other people. And I said to her, I'll never forget this. I said, well, I wish I had the magic bullet for myself. I said, unfortunately, these things are processes, and not everything is going to work that quickly. We all want quick, but it's like anything, as you know, as painful as it can be, it's really the longer term flame that's effective. We can get fireworks, we can get Band-Aids, right? But those don't really get sometimes to the root of the issue. And sometimes we have to sit with that. And we as people, coach, therapists, or anyone that's trying to help someone, sometimes you just have to sit and trust that that person may not let you know right away of your effectiveness.
Mm. Wow, very good, very good. And this is reminding me, when you say trust the process, this reminds me of something that I hear from Anne quite a bit. I don't know how all this stuff works. And I don't know that I need to know how it works. I just know that it seems to work, but I've got to follow the process. I've got to follow the steps. I've got to have a burning desire. I've got to have faith. And then, as we've been talking about today, I've got to surround myself with like-minded people who are willing to invest in helping me accomplish these goals at a pace and at a rate and at a level that maybe I don't even appreciate as possible. So, and you've got to be enjoying this conversation.
Yeah, I am. And what you're reminding me of, Darlene, is the fact that, the author reminds us that when we read this book, that we should meditate on what we've read. And in the beginning of your conversation, as we open up the podcast, you shared how you came about the book and how it's impacting still your business and your life. But I think we're all beginning to learn that as this mastermind concept begins to unfold, we see everybody now masterminding, if you will.
Yeah.
Paid mastermind groups, unpaid mastermind groups. And the process is working for many different reasons and for many different people. Can you share with us how you've used this principle to overcome a struggle in your business and or your life?
Yes.
Thank you.
I mean, like anything, I've been around a long time, so I could go over the bumps along the trajectory of my life. But I'll give you an example more recently, and I think I told you this, and I'll share a little bit more about it. So I wrote a book. I'm not writing this book. It will be published next year, and I'll share that later. But so I wrote this manuscript, and I thought I better have a developmental editor look at it, and she did. And this manuscript was not pretty, and I knew what needed work, but I didn't realize how much. I would call it the ugly duckling. I hate to do that because ducks are cute, but you know my point. So she said to me, why don't you consider this, 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 this? And I thought about it. She inspired me. I didn't do exactly what she said, but she started me on the course because it was not good. And I then entered it in a 5-page contest. And let me tell you, it was very not good because I would say it was very bad because the beginning was horrible. I looked at it. They were very kind, the judges. They said, this is a little, this is like a blog. And one of the questions, would you read this any further? They go, are you kidding? I could really get through this. I'm like, okay. And then, but they were right. They were right, but it sparked me. And then one of them said, the protagonist, the therapist is the protagonist in this book. She sounded arrogant. And I thought, I didn't never want her to sound arrogant, but I reread it and they were right. Now, I could have said, I guess some people argue with the judges, you're wrong and you don't know what you're talking about. No, that's not my style. I'm like, no, I didn't know what I was talking about. So I thought I can lay it down. Some people do. 97% of, I think, novelists never finish their books because it's hard. It's difficult. And that might be a figure might be off, but it's pretty high. I thought, no, it's not who I am. Over the course of my life, I've endured these kind of things, not horrible, just, a little bit of a bang, a little bit of a bruise. And I rewrote it. And then it finally got better, critiques. And finally, one more thing that made me see, there's something called show and tell. I need to show more, like painting a book instead of writing words. Instead of saying, Ian, you look angry, it's more like Ian knitted her eyebrows together. You want to show. It's a very difficult concept, but once you get it, it's not easy, but it gets easier. So finally, I got it. And that led me to my book becoming maybe not a beautiful swan, but I hope a pretty enough swan, and maybe some readers will judge it as beautiful. But it was through that process, and I consider that masterminding process. I searched out, and even when the critique stung, I said, well, you take that, you can lay down, or you get back up and you get going and you use their infinite intelligence, because they're far superior than I am about knowledge about this craft. And that's what I did. But many people don't. And I understand it's not an easy process.
Oh, Galen, I got to go back. Darlene, Oh my goodness, you just tapped into what Napoleon Hill shares in the very beginning of this book when he talked about the fact that power may be acquired through organized knowledge. And I want to share with everybody who's listening, we have our own ideas of what a mastermind group is. And what I love about what Darlene is sharing is this is a different take and it works for her. Napoleon Hill shares that there's 3 sources of organized knowledge. The first one is in infinite intelligence. And that's a source of knowledge that we connect with creative imagination. Okay. The second form he calls accumulated experience. And that's where you would take, he says that this is found in our schools and our libraries, in these places. I like to call it, well, you can call it whatever you want to call it, but he says this is schools, public knowledge, all of these places where knowledge has been accumulated. All right. The third one, he says, experiment and research. Experimenting and research. Every walk of life, he says, men are gathering and classifying and organizing facts daily. What she has just done that just connected for me in the story that you just shared about the writing of the book, the judges, you sought out a place that would hold you accountable for the work you were doing. Even though it was stinging, you were willing to be held accountable to continue to go back and forth until you got it right. How many of us are not willing, and like you called it, lay it down, how many of us are not willing to hang in there and go to those places? And for those of us who are speakers, they can be called showcases and these different things, Toastmasters, and all of these different places that you go to become better at your craft or your certification. So what you're doing, Darlene, and thank you so very much, is you're helping us to understand that there are so many different ways to look at this idea of masterminding.
Yeah.
Galen?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna quote Anne McNeil. For me, this keeps coming back to what's your burning desire, right?
Yeah.
Is your burning desire to preserve your feeling about yourself, or is your burning desire to write a book that people will want to read? Because if your burning desire was to continue to feel good about Darlene, then you'd have given up the first time they gave you some harsh criticism. But because your burning desire was, no, I've got something here that I think can help people, and I want to put it into a position where people will want to read it beyond the first 3 paragraphs. Because that was your burning desire, that's when those comments became something more than criticism. They became critique. They became opportunities for you to get better. And I think that for me is a lesson for all of us. What is your burning desire? Is it about preserving your own feeling of yourself, your ego, or is it about this other thing that you say is important? So what's your reaction to that, Darlene, about locking into your true burning desire?
I think you hit the nail on the head. It was my desire. I thought, once in a while I do say, why am I doing this? But it was my burning desire that prevailed. And it was the same way years ago as a therapist when I first got in. We all had this very difficult, should I say, woman that critiqued us. And she said to me, you're not ready. And I was devastated. And I worked really hard on that craft. I was in my 20s. And when I got back and really refined it more, my supervisor said, I didn't think you'd come back. And I thought, that never even crossed my, like that didn't cross my mind. My desire was so burning, so powerful. And it's the same here in the novel writing 40 years later. You're right. I pushed through and I thought, take it and keep doing it and keep refining. Keep that goal in mind, the burning desire. And it is. I feel it when I'm writing. I can feel the exhilaration.
That's it exactly. I can so identify with your entire story, the process. Even in the book that I wrote in 2017, there was this process where it's in front of a group of other authors, and yeah, it gets kind of personal because this is your baby. I
That's
mean, you
right.
wouldn't have
That's right.
submitted it if you didn't think it was good. But you have to submit to, their perspective, their experience, their wisdom, if your desire is to have something that other people are going to enjoy. So my hat is off to you. I
Yeah.
feel like we're part of the same author
Yeah.
fraternity now because I know what that process is like.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yes. To you too. That's right. I know. It is personal, Galen, but go ahead. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I was gonna go back to Anne. Anne is an author as well.
Right.
How are you relating to this conversation and the power of the mastermind to make almost any output better?
Well, I want to yield to um, our audience participants. If you have any questions, we do want to honor you in this process. Donnelly, we have Tarsh Durkins also joining us, and so many on YouTube. Please put your questions in the chat and we will come back and answer those. My challenge, going back to the question about masterminding, is a part of the National Speakers Association. And when you talk about whether it's speaking or writing, the masterminding with like-minded and like-spirited individuals in your craft. I cannot think of anything more powerful. Only iron can sharpen iron. Iron cannot sharpen paper. And so often we align ourselves with individuals who are really not, putting a finger in that pain point.
Mm.
Yes.
So whether it is in our business or even our personal lives, Napoleon Hill talks about the fact that all of this is an effort to help us become better. But for what purpose? Going back to Galen's point about the desire, and it's to make money. But to make money to do what? Because I'm always saying it's about the money, but the money to do what with? Darlene mentioned that her client paid. They didn't use insurance for their son. They paid.
Yes.
What if money was an issue and they could not pay and they did not have the insurance? Did that now mean that their son could not get the help? Right. Right. Now, speaking of help and masterminding, I would like to now shift over to an event we're hosting, Kayla, in January.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to again just highlight this annual meeting that we have every year. January, it's going to be January 5th and 6th in 2024. It's going to be in Pompano Beach. This is a different location because we're upgrading, we're elevating the experience, but at the same time, this is really not about the location. This is about the investment that you're going to put into really thinking through what has been your life over the past 365 or 364 days. What have you done relative to achieving the goals that you set for yourself? Did you achieve all of them? Were there some that you didn't really put any priority behind? Was your desire not effective, not effective enough for you to achieve those goals? What were some of the challenges? So you're going to put in this work to evaluate your life of the past year and then make goals and plans for the next year. Not only what's your desire, but what's your organized plan for making your goals a reality. And you've got to show up with your life in writing and with that assessment in writing, but it doesn't stop there. You've got to share your life. You got to share your accomplishments, your challenges, as well as your goals and your plans with a team of other people, with oftentimes strangers. And you've got to allow them to do what Darlene just described, put that finger in the pain point and figure out how you can make your plans better. It is absolutely life-changing. This is a family event, so definitely bring your kids, bring your spouse, bring your significant other, bring your mastermind, because this is how the mastermind process really finds its power in helping you live your life on purpose in a way that very often is beyond your level of expectation. I've already got my ticket. I'm already planning to go. I would really love to see you there. And what did I miss out? What did I miss relative to talking about this annual meeting?
It would help if I unmute myself. Want to remind everybody, register early. Please register early. Invest in your masterminding opportunities to be held accountable for every single area of your life and your business. You can go to the internationalmasterminders.com website. The details are there. We discuss this every single Saturday. Many of you have already registered, like Caitlin said, but we really want to encourage you to ask yourself the question. This is the Mastermind Principle Month. We're discussing it every week. But who's holding you accountable? Where is your power coming from? Darlene has already shared her experience with going before, I like to call it the tribunal, the tribunal for the book. But what about the tribunal for your life? Where will you go at least once a year and be held accountable for the last 365 days that you just spent, or did you just invest? That tribunal will determine if you get to spend or invest another 365 days based upon your commitment for the last 365 days, called your goals. And I cannot think, Galen, of another place that I can go and my family. And I tell this quick story. My granddaughter, Raja, has been reading the book since she started reading. That was at 3, then 4, then 5, then 6. She just turned 7 last weekend. The Sunday prior, I asked her, I said, oh, Raja, your birthday's coming up. What are you going to do? Now, this is a masterminder. She meets with the children every Sunday for 30 minutes at least, discussing their goals and sharing their little short affirmation. I said, Raja, what are you going to do for your birthday? The power of a mastermind group. She said, I'm going to the beach. I'm going to spend 3 days. And she started listing all of these things that she was going to do. I started getting excited. Her brother started getting excited. And then it dawned on me, because she kept going, thinking to myself, and I asked her, I said, does your mom know about this? So she said, no, not yet. This was her burning desire as she turned 7. I am the grandmother, of course, right? So I'm convicted. Now here's the spark you talked about, Darlene. I'm convicted. Why am I convicted? Because I am on my way, as she's speaking, I'm on my way 4 days later to go to Panama to celebrate the birthday of a friend. And I'm thinking to myself, 4 days later, we're all on a plane going to Panama to celebrate Roger's birthday. Every single thing she said she wanted, she did. But it would have never happened. I got chills. Oops, sorry. Both of my arms over my body. Why? If she was not clear from masterminding and deciding and determining exactly what she wanted, she would not have been able to send it out into the universe for it to land on the ears of anybody who could give her that desire. But money, and for those of you who are Bible toters, you know what it says. I'm not going to get into that. You can use a figment of your imagination. This process, I tell people all the time, it is not easy. And I, for one, do not want to be held that closely accountable. I do not want to be that disciplined. And I don't want to do this. I don't. This is hard work to work on me. I can work on Darlene. I can work on Galen. I can work on my children, my husband. I can work on him. But when it comes to this person, this is the hardest job I have ever had in my life, because there's no ending to it until the end. I would not have been able to give her that desire if I did not do the work. And so I want to share that because as a masterminder myself since 1979, I cannot think of a better way to achieve my goals and help my family and my friends and my coworkers and my associates achieve their goals other than using this principle. Mm. So with those thoughts, Darlene, we're going to come back to you as we prepare to wrap up. And we'd like to have you share anything that you are promoting in your books, your blog. Yes, Galen.
Yeah, before we do that, we got an amazing question from Donnelly, and I want to bring that in, Darlene. He's asking, what is the natural antagonist of your expertise, and how do you use the mastermind process to plan your battles?
This is for Darlene.
That's a very good question. I have to think about that for a minute. Well, I've been around the block a few times. I do believe, I don't want to say wisdom always comes with age, because I sit with very wise young people, but I think it's just recognizing that, trusting in myself. The antagonist is, am I good enough sometimes? That sometimes resonates, whether it be, even all these years as a therapist, I do feel I am, but ever so often I say, oh my gosh, maybe I shouldn't have said that. So the question that arises, so in this writing process, and you both of you know, being authors, that's also very personal, is it good enough? Can I go and expose this? And of course I'm going to get criticism. I mean, that's a part of life, but that I have to fight against and say, you do the best you can, you be the best you can, the best. And that's what I tell people, my clients or anyone, be the best version of yourself. And then I say to Darlene, practice what you preach. So I hope that answers that, but that's the antagonist, is, are you good enough? That pops up ever so often. And again, and I really, just to interject, it's a blessing and a curse, because the curse part, are you good enough? And you have to go, oh my gosh, am I? But the blessing is it pushes you to keep refining and developing and trying to be the best version of you. You don't just sit there and go, well, I'm done, I'm great, I'm this, I'm that. No, you keep going.
Oh my. And again, I'll turn this back over to Ann, but I can relate to that as well. You know, one of the things when you mastermind with like-minded people and you do this over a period of time, very often my mastermind members will say, you know, I'll bring an issue, I'll bring a challenge or concern or doubt. Will come into the conversation, and my mastermind members will say, well, Galen, that doesn't sound like you. That's inconsistent with what I heard you say last month. Or every time you come, you're bringing these same kinds of limiting beliefs. When are we going to deal with that? And it's just that ability to speak into those challenges that you just raised, Darlene, being able to know that about you and not let you hide, because we're all, once you get to a level of professionalism, we all kind of know how to hide if we had to, right? We kind of know how to position this so it's not really a big deal. But if you've got people around you who are like-minded and they want the best for you, they're going to hold you accountable and they're not going to let you hide.
That's right.
Yeah, there was
And I
another.
guess, oh, I'm sorry. I wanted to, I didn't mean, I just want to interject about I didn't finish the mastermind piece. I really believe that Napoleon Hill has resonated with me long before I even knew who Napoleon Hill was. But go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Darlene. We do have another question from Patrick Alexander, and this is to you, Darlene. He says, from your practice and study of the book, Think and Grow Rich, what is a nugget, an aha moment that made a huge difference in your life?
Oh, that whole book I've read it over 3 or 4 times. I still have, but I'll go back to the quote. I know it sounds very simplistic, but whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. And I say that over and over. And that really pulls everything together. Again, it's very general. It's not going into every step here, but it really captures my belief in what he says. And history shows people who have done that. So that is really what keeps me going, what keeps me on that goal.
All right, thank you. And I am just typing that in the chat, whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Thank you so much. Now, as we wrap up, I'm going to come back to you, Darlene, and ask if there's anything else you'd like to share as a part of our closing comments. And we also want to thank you again for being willing to come back and let you know we are sending you love. We miss you. And we are so happy that you are back. But any closing comments from you or anything you have you'd like to share, any programs, projects, books, or anything like that?
Yeah. So first of all, I want to say to everybody who's listening that if you have something you want to do or you're not sure you want to reveal it, just listen, pay attention to yourself. And if you want to be inspired, just go outside or read something and write it down. Write it down, because that spark, as we've talked about, disappears, then you forget about it. So that's what I would always suggest people: write it down and remind yourself of the power of your mind. If you're bored, there's no reason to be bored. Use that great mind. So that's it. The other thing is my book. So you can go up to my website, darlenecorbett.com. I'm going to begin a newsletter in October if people want to sign up for it. I think it's going to come from Substack. I haven't quite decided, but it's looking that way. Thank you so much, Galen and Ian, or whoever else is behind the scenes. And my book, Visible Forever, is coming out, and it's a novel. And I'll just say the 2 themes are: 1 is second chances, and 2 is human suffering is inevitable. There's much unfairness in the world, but that it's how we manage it, and that we can find a way. And so it's about a therapist who was on a journey, her 5 clients, professionally successful, but very wounded. And she helps them and then helps herself. And that's called Visible Forever, because so many people feel invisible. And by us using this and our connection to others, our masterminding, the energy, we don't have to feel invisible.
Oh, powerful, powerful. Thank you so much, Galen. As we wrap up, if you can share any aha moments you've had and how people can contact you.
Oh my gosh, just so many ahas. I think the most significant thing for me is how we are all on this journey together. And I love the part in the book where the author says, very, very much like what you said, Anne, that this success thing takes work. You've got to put work into being successful. Poverty is bold, right? Negativity is bold. It's going to come in without any help, without any work. If you just allow your mind to drift, you can find negativity. But positivity and success requires focus. It requires work, and you've got to put the work in, because otherwise, this world will not treat you kindly. So those are my ahas. Relative to how you can get a hold of me, so many ways. Just put in my name, and you put up a bat signal, and I'll find a way to find you. But one of the things I want to highlight is a collaborative that I am undertaking with Dr. Peter James. It's called Power Moments. It's where we work with your affinity organization to help Black and Brown executives. Research shows that 25 to 30% of all senior executives either have or have had executive coaching. I've coached almost 1,000 executives. I've only worked with 5 African Americans. So although I work with corporations, the corporations decide who gets to work with the executive coach. If you are part of an affinity organization that focuses on Black and Brown executives, National Black MBA Association, your fraternity, your sorority, whatever the case might be, have them go to powermoments.com, reach out to us, and see if there's a way for us to bring the power of executive coaching into your organization to add real value to your membership and real value to the organization.
Wow, thank you. Thank you. As we wrap up, we want to thank all of you that have come to share with us today. Every Saturday, we share a principle from this book, Think and Grow Rich. And the first principle is desire. What is it that you want? Napoleon Hill shares with us that it starts, number 1, with how much money do you want? Number 2, what are you going to do in return for the money? Number 3, by what date do you want the money by? He gives us 6 steps. I now call it my 6-point business plan, because of my 5 businesses, every single one, I've used the exact same formula, and it has brought great and greater success. This is Ann McNeil, the Master Builder, helping to build stronger, better lives and businesses. And if you are interested in getting a copy of those 6 steps, you can text the word "and," that's ANN, at 55678. So if you take out your phone right now, yes, right now, those of you who have not done so, and text the number 55678. Again, that number is 55678. And in the chat, just put the word "and," that's my name, ANN, and I will send you all 6 of those. But until next time, we want to thank you for always joining us. Please remember to comment, like, and share this podcast, but also subscribe. We will see you next week, same place, same channel. And until then, please remember to continue to think and grow richer. All right, see you.